Hey everyone, this is Chris, and you're listening to One Cross Radio. And today we are joined by Luna, because she is right next to me, looking for affection. This is my third attempted start of this. Um, but I've had some flubs, the audio hasn't been good, and this whole time Luna's just been here like, Papa, I want squishies. Give me love. Give me affection. I am perfection. You need love. And she deserves it, because she is perfection. Um, anyways, so we are here for our final episode of 2022. I can't believe we've gotten through this year. Um, it the first half felt like it was connected to the last 3 or 4 years, which quite honestly felt like a decade in and of themselves. And then the last 6 months have just been slingshotting and we've been rocketing in the other direction. Um, and I'll be upfront with you guys. This wasn't the planned 2022 finale. I had actually recorded a watch along yesterday, but I've been transparent with my with some of my mental health struggles or experiences, I'll say. Um, so y'all know I have an anxiety disorder. Well, towards the back half of that episode, I didn't realize that while recording it, I was starting to have a mini panic attack. So the energy in the episode shifted. It just kind of abruptly ended because I hadn't fully realized it, but my mind was basically like, "Yo, abort, abort." Um, so it just kind of abruptly ends. And to be honest, I did listen back to the episode because I was like, is this salvageable? And I just wasn't satisfied with it. And yeah, you can do episodes a little bit more off the cuff, but I don't want the watch alongs to be that because those are sometimes difficult enough to be enjoyable for others, period, because you might not be watching it. So you're just listening to off the cuff reactions. So if it's not good, I just don't want to put it out. And it could have been fine, but I wasn't satisfied with it. So instead we're pivoting to this episode, which it might be the first in a new series. We'll see. Just because it can be an ongoing conversation. But as previewed by the title of the episode, we are looking at fan service done right. And specifically, through that lens, we're looking at 2013's The Night of the Doctor, which was a 8-minute special put on by the BBC that they announced 1 hour before it dropped. And it was during the week where it was a huge love on fest of Doctor Who because it was the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who. Um, so to give that context, at that time, because Doctor Who is of course still going on, Matt Smith was the current Doctor at the time, the 11th Doctor. Um, the episode prior to the 50th anniversary, the Day of the Doctor, had established at within the last 2 to 3 minutes that there was a previously unknown incarnation of the Doctor, played by the late great John Hurt. Um, and he became eventually known as the War Doctor. So that episode, uh, named it was called The Name of the Doctor. Um, it set up this previously unknown incarnation that now we're going to learn about in the 50th anniversary. And the 50th anniversary episode, it was a fantastic piece of television, of entertainment, of I'd say if you want to do an anniversary celebration, this is something you model after, especially if it's going to be more drama heavy. This is the Day of the Doctor is a great model for how you can pull off fan service, but do it very, very well. And do nods to the franchise without getting bogged down with those nods and carrying things forward. It also guest starred the previous Doctor, David Tennant, um, and always fantastic in the role. So the reason I give that backstory is because fan service is a tricky thing. Now, as a fan, of course, yes, I want fan service. The Marvel movies, when they do the fan service well, it's great. Like Infinity War and Endgame, you could argue was a smorgasbord of fan service. Cap holding the hammer, like that moment designed just to get the fans cheering. It's like, yes, we've wanted this forever, kind of thing. Um, it when it's done well, it is fantastic. It should be logical to the story, or at the very least, not detract from it. It shouldn't be a thing that's like I'm still going to enjoy it. A weird example I'm going to give is the Expendables 2, which is very different from Doctor Who and Marvel movies, and we can discuss its qualities. But I think Expendables 2 knew what it was. It was like, yeah, no, we're a 80s overly macho action movie in the late 2000s, early 2010s, I think. I can't quite remember the year it came out, but towards the end, even though it very much knew what it was, it arguably was doing the fan service stuff because yeah, it's going to get a cheer. Did it make sense to the plot? Did it make sense for the story? Probably not so much. To have Bruce Willis and Arnie referencing each other's lines outside of this franchise? No, not really. Was it fun as heck though? Yes. Um, and that's the thing. At times you'll get fan service where it's just there to be like, oh, I'm gonna distract you with this and the nostalgia and the fun and ignore gaping holes that I've just created. Or ignore how this doesn't make any sense why this is here. Um Night of the Doctor, quite honestly, might be to me it's in contention for the best fan service period. I think it's the epitome of fan service done right. So I'll get into that a little bit. The further thing I'll add though is part of the reason that Night of the Doctor exists is to give you guys an idea if you're not a Doctor Who fan, what was going on. So the show existed from the 60s up to the late 80s, up until I believe it was 88, 89, and then it was not officially canceled, just put on an indefinite hiatus. Um, during which in 1996 there was a television movie made, co-produced with I think it was Fox. I can't quite remember, Fox and the BBC, and it was an idea of like, hey, let's relaunch Doctor Who. We'll slightly Americanize it. To make it more palatable for the states, it will be a continuation from the shows. So this will the movie features Paul McGonn's Eighth Doctor. But we're also gonna say he's half human. Eric Roberts, who you guys know him. He's been in literally almost everything. If you watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, he was the guy who showed up when they were down in Florida. If you watched The Dark Knight, he was the guy who Batman pushed off that balcony and broke his ankles. Like Eric Roberts has shown up in virtually everything. He's one of those guys where as soon as you see him, you're like, oh, it's him. He was the Master for some reason, but it's a partially American adaptation. Um, and the TV movie did all right, but it wasn't the huge success they wanted it to be. It didn't springboard the comeback of the show. So then the show kind of went back into dormancy until 2004 when uh dang it, why can't I I was thinking of his name just earlier. Just earlier, and now of course it slipped my mind. Doctor Who, showrunner, Russell. I just want to get Russell's name right. Russell T Davies. I think. Sorry, so sorry. This is what you guys are here for. Yeah, Russell T Davies. I was right. Okay, so he brought the show back on BBC in 2004 with Christopher Eccleston as the Ninth Doctor. Um, Eccleston was my first Doctor. Um, and I love that version of the character. But something they brought back was, hey, we're going to be a continuation of the show, but we're also going to create a clean jumping on point. So a huge factor was we got addresses of the Time War, where it was like, hey, this is why, for the most part, although increasingly we're going to bring back the Daleks, but this is why the universe or the Whoniverse is different. Uh, there's no other Time Lords except for the Master. Um, and the Doctor did something big where he basically kill killed all the Daleks and all the Time Lords because the war was getting out of control, and it was like, yep, I'm going to kill millions, but to save billions, that kind of thing, blah blah blah. Um, but it's stuff they had addressed from the show, but never dove into that much. Like, you still had the Doctor dealing with post traumatic stress over his actions, the guilt, the non-stop guilt, references to it, but then the day of the Doctor, uh, which was the 50th anniversary special, it was going to be about the Time War. We were finally going to get a good glimpse of it. We were going to see the action that led to what set up the revival show's storyline events. Um, and they had wanted to bring back uh, Christopher Eccleston's Doctor. And I think the reported idea was it was going to be like, hey, he was the one that pulled the trigger, that did this decision, which is why he's so drastically different from the other Doctors. But Eccleston had a really rough time, not with Russell T Davies, but with the BBC and number of the production crew and what he saw as unfair and horrible treatment of others. So he's also an actor who's like, when I move on from something, I move on from something. So he did not come back, which then necessitated, as they're building towards this 50th anniversary, the creation of the War Doctor. So then it throws off the plans for the 50th anniversary, adds something they have to then add into this penultimate episode before the 50th anniversary. And it's something that could have thrown them into a bind. But Stephen Moffat, I almost called him William Moffat, Stephen Moffat, the showrunner of Doctor Who at the time, did an amazing pivot. Did like even if we didn't get the Night of the Doctor, they still made it work. It would have worked. But then he did this fantastic pivot, and we got this high production 8-minute short that dropped that is pure fan service. But not only does it flow with the story for the Day of the Doctor, it also answered a question that people thought they would never get. So to further, and just briefly before I get into Night of the Doctor proper, just to give an idea, Doctor Who exists in numerous formats. Now, the official canon is the television show. Included, up until something in the show contradicts it, is what they call the Big Finish audio productions. And a number of the Doctors have continued with those Big Finish stories. So, Paul McGann, who for a while, only physical outing of the Doctor was the Doctor Who television movie. Um, but then his Doctor really got fleshed out. Yes, in some comics, but mostly in the Big Finish productions where Paul McGann would play the Doctor, and he won over so many people, similar to Colin Baker winning over people as the sixth Doctor after his season. Um, Kind of unceremoniously ended, and then there was a falling out with management, and eventually I might do a whole Doctor Who production episode, and there's some amazing behind the scenes documentaries that a gentleman does on YouTube. I will link to that playlist in the description because they're utterly fantastic. Um, so Magan had won over a lot of people from the Big Finish audio, which is treated as canon, like I said, until something from the show is like, nope, and then they disregard it. It's similar to the old expanded universe with Star Wars, where it's canon until the show says otherwise, or in Star Wars case, movies say otherwise, because it's always going to be that's the primary medium that's going to supersede everything else. Um, so Magan had won over a lot of people, but that's in the Hooniverse. Outside of that, casual viewers, they could or if they don't have access to the Big Finish library of stuff, the only spot they could have ever watched him up until Night of the Doctor, which I'm going to get to in a second, was these the Big Finish books, audios, and they hadn't done the Doctor, the eighth's regeneration into nine. So when the series restarted, nicknamed New Who, um, in 2004, we were just starting with Christopher Eccleston's ninth Doctor. Um, we were just starting with him. We don't know what happened to the Eighth Doctor. We didn't see the regeneration. We saw the regeneration of 9 into 10, 10 into 11, and on we go. But we never saw uh, the regeneration of 8 into 9. We find out that during the name of the Doctor that there's also this previous unknown incarnation. So we're like, wait, what? Where did this come in? And this is where Night of the Doctor, I think, stands tall. Um, so not only is it incredibly high produced, it was also a total fan service fest, but done so well because it explains what happened to 8. So not only did they just drop the announcement like, "Hey, check our YouTube, check online and everything. Night of the Doctor is dropping in an hour." Then like 60 seconds in, Paul McGann is on the screen. And his introduction is great because he's like, I'm a doctor, but probably not the one you were expecting. Nobody knew this was coming. This was a tightly kept secret. Now, the reason BBC dropped it earlier than planned was they were nervous it was going to leak because there was a number of leaks going on. This was like Doctor Who, it's lost some of the luster that it had at the time. It's not as big in around the world as it was at the height of the 50th anniversary, at the height of the 11th Doctor's era. Um, but it was like still there was a smorgasbord of love for the show, and of course there was a lot of speculation. The episode, Dave the Doctor was being released on BBC. Simultaneously around the world at the same time and in some theaters. That's how big of a deal this was, and it was a huge success. So BBC was understandably nervous this was going to get leaked. They wanted this as a surprise, so they dropped it a week or two before they originally planned. They had and there was no hype. Nobody knew this was coming. They had kept so tight-lipped on it. I'm so glad they did. Um, just because out of nowhere, and if you were active on like Doctor Who subreddit or Doctor Who Twitter or whatever at the time, it was just something like, "Yo, something's coming." And we're like, "What?" Like all we knew that was coming was the announced stuff and the 50th anniversary, and it's just like, "Nope, something's coming in an hour. Specials dropping in an hour." And we're like, "What the heck?" Um, and then you get out of nowhere Paul McGann as the Doctor. We're getting 8 again. We never thought we'd see the 8th Doctor on screen again. And this dude Paul McGann was so good as the Doctor in his brief, like 5 minutes on screen. And the 96 movie is what it is. It's not that good. If you want good Eighth Doctor stories, I'd be like, visually, watch Night of the Doctor. You're going to see right away what we'd be missing. But from what others who have followed the Big Finish more than I have been able to, he brings a lot of the characterization that they grew the character into from the Big Finish audios to the screen. They also pay off longtime followers of the Big Finish stuff when right before he regenerates into the War Doctor, he references his companions from the Big Finish. So, Night of the Doctor, pure fan service with Paul McGann, pure fan service with all this referencing to Big Finish. Pure fan service in the sense of we didn't know what was coming, and it was something that people wanted, and then he suddenly realized I didn't know how badly I wanted this. Um, but not only was it great fan service, they did it in a way where it carried the story forward. It was a great setup to it put a bow on the Eighth Doctor. We didn't know where he was coming from. It then answered when in the timeline this was, because then also it set up, hey, the War Doctor was the in between 8 and 9. So yeah, we can get it. Like there was understandably some discussion later about like, oh, so the 11th Doctor is really the 12th. 12th is really 13. Okay. Um, but on and on I go. Uh, like that part, blah blah blah. You can discuss that. To me, it doesn't impact it too much. This was this carried the story forward. It answered a lot of questions in a logical and sense-making way. It didn't add in any plot holes, and they did it in a way where fans were surprised, fans were in, and holy crap, like we loved it. So I remember suddenly, and I would have been in if they did it. There was suddenly fan petitions like 15,000 signatures, 20,000, 25,000, being like, "Yo, give us a spin-off. Give us the Eighth Doctor." Suddenly everybody's like, "No, Paul's due, son. Like he was so good. We want him." And this is when people were still like, "Nah, we like keep give us the rest of Matt, give us Capaldi because we know he's coming in, but also give us the side of Paul." Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and it kind of makes sense. And they're like, "Look, if you dilute the brand too much, if there's two doctors at the time, that's going to be tricky." I would have loved it, but I kind of get it. I kind of get it. I think now in a post Marvel world, they could see how they could balance it, but this was 2013 MCU in the early stages, and BBC, as much as it did have a nice budget boost as well from BBC America, it did not have like though that huge banking to do something like that. Um, Night of the Doctor is people at the time were also like, this is one of the best episodes of television you'll catch this year. I agree. It is a phenomenal, tight, tidy little story. If you're not that familiar with the Eighth Doctor or the behind the scenes stuff, it still tells a nice, tight, tidy story that just sets you up for if you're a casual viewer and you caught Name of the Doctor, uh before the Day of the Doctor. It answers that question. It's this nice, tidy little setup. If you're not even that huge into Doctor Who, it still does a nice bit of being intriguing, showcasing solid acting, and it's got enough there to make you interested. Um, Night of the Doctor is, to me, an achievement. It is what fan service should be modeled after. I'm always going to enjoy, well, not always. For the most part, I'll enjoy fan service uh, 80% of the time. If it's done just to be there and it's like, oh, hey, let me distract you with this, and oh, isn't this cool? Where it's like, yeah, but it doesn't make any sense. It have it It doesn't make any sense. It's detracting. It's taking me out of the moment. I should be enjoying this, but I'm questioning why it's here or what this person's going to do because their powers don't work in this situation. They're they're now in more jeopardy. You get what I mean? Uh Night of the Doctor not only is utter fan service, it makes sense within the story, and that's what fan service should do. So I just wanted to do this short episode. Like I said, there's going to be a couple links in the description. The first will be to the Night of the Doctor itself. The episode is tight 8 minutes. It's on YouTube. It's excellent. If you're a Who fan, I think you'll really, really appreciate it. If you're not a Who fan, I think you'll. I still think there's enough to dig there. I know Who fans are called Whovians, but I've also said Whoniverse, and I don't want to be too. um, and then of course I'm also going to link to the excellent series of like fan I'll say fan retrospectives that are on YouTube. I'm going to look up the name of it cuz I want to shout out the person in particular just cuz it's fantastic. Like I want this dude to do retrospectives for borderline everything. So give me one quick sec. I just got to look up his name. Doctor Who. There we go, Doctor Who retrospective. So it's from Clever Dick Films. Um, he has currently gone up through the Matt Smith era. So his last episode was about the 11th Doctor. Um, but he's done from the time the show was created through. Utterly fantastic. I cannot recommend them enough. All that being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I hope you're enjoying uh, your holiday season. I hope you're having a wonderful Christmas. Just so y'all know, um, we will be taking a break for Christmas. Also, when we come back in the new year, you'll still be able to find us on all our socials, but the One Cross Radio podcast website won't be active anymore. It's just as prices are inflating. I frankly can't afford it anymore. It just doesn't make the fiscal sense to do it. Um, Not like that's not a plea, that's not a or anything like that. Like I'm thankful for any support everybody's given, but the cost of running the website has gone up and it just doesn't get the engagements and frankly I don't use it enough or do more enough on there. I'm doing more on other platforms. It just doesn't make any sense to keep hosting the website. So the website will be going away. It might eventually come back, but I'm just moving that away. Um yeah, just wanted to give you that guy's update. There'll now be a link tree with link to everything, including the Radio Arcade podcast as well. I hope you all have the best possible day. Fantastic Christmas season. I appreciate your thoughts, your love, your encouragement, your prayers. I appreciate the reaching out. I also happily want to let y'all know I did announce it on Twitter and Instagram, but heck, a bunch of y'all only hear us through the podcast. The last episode was sharing from the live stream where we were fundraising um, for to write "Love on Her Arms" for as a memorial for Jason David Frank. As of this past, as of sorry, let me look it up. Just to get the date right. As of Thursday, December the 8th, we officially passed our goal of $800. So, to everybody who donated, thank you so much. Any time of year, I appreciate donations, but almost especially at this year, because at this time of year, because at this time of year, prices are going up. Everybody's worried. Everybody's trying to do gift giving, and then as well, everybody is at the same time asking for donations. So to and donation fatigue, care fatigue is a thing. So to everybody who was able to donate and shared and prayed, just thank you so much. All that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas, the happiest of holidays, an amazing New Year, and we will be back in early 2023. Hope you have a great day, and God bless, my friends. Take care. Peace.